Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Colorex Pebeo session. We've got Max here from Pebeo. I also just want to say there is a prize um, for every week that we're doing this. So there's a prize this week, next week, the week after, and then there's one big grand prize after the sessions are over. Um, so to be entered for the prize draws, please enter your email into the chat just to confirm that you are who you are. And if you don't want to put it into the everyone chat, you can feel free to message me privately if you'd prefer. So, with all that being said, take it away, Max.
Thank you. So just to repeat everyone. Welcome to the Pebeo sessions. This month here, we're sort of doing our Pebeo Art Club where every single week we have a different project, or actually it's a different subject as well. Last week we did Origin or acrylics, which are our Pebeo Eco product. This week here we are doing, did I say last year? I meant last week. This week here, we are doing Colorex. And then the week after that, we're actually going to be doing, so next week, make sure to register for that. Next week, we're going to be covering our Pebeo acrylic markers, as well as our four artist oil markers. And last week, there were a lot of questions actually on Vitrail, which was our glass paint. So I actually decided to integrate a little like mini project on that because we had had a great conversation about that. So I'm gonna add a little bit of that. So you get little bonus next week of different materials to work with. And then the final week we're going to do Matte Pub, which is also an acrylic paint, but it is an acrylic paint that is geared towards, it was originally designed for mural making, which makes it actually a beautiful matte paint that can stick to all kinds of surfaces. So it's actually going to survive outdoors and indoors. So you can also use it for fine art. Like definitely have a whole bunch of different stuff coming up. Yeah, next week is gonna be really fun. Next week, expect chaos because I'm probably gonna be like, oh, and we should also talk about this, and oh, we should talk about that. Next week, I'm probably gonna bring in, yeah, we'll be already doing Vitrail and markers and more markers, so it's gonna be a whole bunch of different stuff. Okay, so like we say, this is a 4 week project. We're on week 2. Every single week it's a different one. Every single week there's a different prize, and there's going to be a final prize at the end. So make sure absolutely at one point to put your email in the chat, either publicly or privately, to make sure that you're in the draw. Either way, every single person that registers to one of our courses will be receiving a PDF download from me. So basically, I'll be sending Delta our PDF download for the project that we worked on today. That'll have a step-by-step of everything that I've done, or even like things I didn't get time to cover. It'll just give you a full step-by-step of the project so that you can actually still get all those tools. So that means that if, for example, in your case, maybe the next week project, and maybe next week's, I don't know, the paint markers, you wish you could be there, but you already have a different appointment. It's okay. Still register. You'll get the PDF download of it, so you'll still get you'll know what to do and what the project was. I mean, we still record these sessions as well, but yeah, so you'll be able to get that as well. So you can still register, and there's no problem. Everyone gets those. While we're still okay, so basically, we still have people coming in, which is brilliant. So as you guys are coming in, just to let everyone know who's coming in, actually, we'll let keep people coming in because man, you guys are it's just like we got a big team here today, bigger team today. Okay, we'll let keep people come in. Okay, so today's project we're going to be working with ColorX. So this is actually going to be the project. You will get a PDF download on how to do this step by step, okay? In full detail. So this is a Holiday Art Nouveau design. The PDF download has 3 different sizes to it. It has one that's this size, it has one that's a larger size as well, and one that's a smaller size actually fits on a card. So if you end up deciding to do this to make your own custom cards, you can totally do this as well. ColorX. The material we're covering today, which I put over in my workstation, is Colorex. So Colorex comes in 2 formats. It comes in a bottle format, but it also comes in a marker format. And today we're going to cover the 2 different ways that you can use it through both formats. What are the differences and what are the different strengths of them? We're also going to cover what's called drawing gum, which is a liquid masking fluid. So if nobody's used this before, I'll also have an activity that you can do this with as well. So we're going to be covering those materials. Now, if you have not known of our company before or you haven't been to the previous session, I'll just quickly describe myself as well as Pebeo. So my name is Max Black. I'm the brand ambassador for Pebeo North America. Now, Pebeo is a international company. We are actually located in France. Our head office is in France. We're a French company. We've been around for over 100 years, established in 1919. We are family owned, still to this day, fourth generation. Now we make a whole bunch of different kinds of materials. We have currently we'll be covering a lot of paint, but we do printmaking supplies. We have paint all sorts of markers. We make gouaches, watercolors, a ton of different sets of acrylic, charcoals, even like we have a huge portfolio of materials. And Delta is an amazing location. It has a ton of our lines, which is really, really fun. So it makes these kind of sessions really fun for me because it means when we're designing the workshops, there's so much to choose from that it's like it gets really, really fun for my side. Which brings me to the next thing as well. Throughout today's workshop, please feel free if you want to throw in any questions as well at any time in the chat. Or you can even unmic yourself and just go right for it. I'm pretty social. This being said as well, if you have any ideas for future workshops that you might want to see, this is something that we're already talking about that we might want to do again sometime next year. So you might be giving us ideas for what we want to focus on next year. If you see something else, or maybe you can check out the Delta website and check out what Pebeo products they have. And if you see something there that you kind of go, oh, that's really cool. I didn't know that they make that. Go for it. Check out the Delta website and let us know what you want to see in the future. Again, we chose these ones because we are the ones that we kind of guessed were the ones that you guys would be most interested in. But if there's something else that you want to see in the future, throw it in there. We are very, very excited to hear what everyone thinks. Okay. All right. So we're going to get started because at this point, I think we're kind of stable-ish more or less of who's here. Again, if you have just joined us, please make sure to put your email address into the chat, either privately or publicly. We are using those emails. Those are the ones that we're going to put in for a draw. We have a beautiful prize pack for each week, and that'll put you in for the prize. I have also added somewhere at the top of the chat, but I'll put it in again, at Maximus K Black, my socials. So I'm on Instagram and TikTok. So if you have anything at all, feel free to message me. If you have any questions at all, I'm there to help. Without further ado, we are going to dive directly into today's workshop. So like I said, today we're going to be kind of learning a whole bunch of techniques by playing with this design over here. Now I know it looks really, really complicated, but I wanted a design that had a whole bunch of different techniques and materials that you guys can use and learn from. So we're going to kind of go step by step. You'll see it's something that anybody can do. It looks a lot more complicated than it really is. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to switch out of this camera mode and give me 2 seconds, and I'm going to switch to the overhead camera so that there's something so I can actually get started. Okay, so I'm just going to move some bottles over here. All right, so today what we're going to be covering, like I said, is Colorex. Now, Colorex comes, like I said, in two different formats. You have the marker and you have the bottles. Now, the full line is available in the bottles. Not all the colors are available in the markers. Now, the reason why for that is that we actually have empty markers. You can actually take a color that is in a bottle that doesn't exist in the marker format, and you can actually fill the marker with your own colors. What this opens the door to, and this is what I like the empties. I think I ordered so many empties from our company, it's not even funny. Because what I use them to make my own custom colors. And that's what I'll show you guys today. So, I mean, like it's one thing, yes, absolutely. You can just take the ink and put it in the marker, you're good to go. Easy. But what I'll also show you guys today is how to make your own mix your own custom color. Well, how I mix my custom colors, and then how I put them in the marker, and then you'll go from there. Now, the different formats, essentially, what's the difference really in usage? When it comes to usage, you're looking at for the bottle, you're going to be able to basically work like you would with any sort of watercolor. Whereas with the marker, we're kind of dancing more into the coloring industry. I'm going to use this as my test sheet for today. So you can see the difference between a marker. You can see you get all sorts of beautiful for coloring. Now, what I also use this for is actually for urban sketching. So I can take my Colorex on the go. So I actually will use this with urban sketching. I grab my sketchbook, I keep a whole bunch of these, and then I just go running around. And again, that's where the custom colors come in pretty nice because then you can mix your own colors that fit for wherever you're sketching, especially do nature sketching or whatever, you can have your own colors. If you're looking at instead, now of course, do I have the same colors? No, I don't. This is a different color, but this is more from the standard of a bottle. So with a bottle, you see by brush, it's just like painting like with watercolor or inks. That's really what it is. Okay. So that's sort of the difference that one will be if it goes directly from the bottle, you're going to um, use it like watercolor. And if you're going to be using it from the marker, it's the exact same ink inside, but you're able to actually just use it like a coloring marker or a sketching marker, which is brilliant. So you can actually do, I have like this project here, I'm going to use by brush today, but it's the same way. You could do it by marker. So it opens up the door to a lot of different things. Now, why is it called a watercolor ink? The reason why it's called a watercolor ink and what does that mean? So watercolors, okay, here's the difference between watercolor and ink, period. Watercolor in any company, watercolor, your pigment is in suspension, okay? Whereas in any sort of ink, instead of the color being pigment, it's actually a dye. Well, dye is diluted inside whatever it's in suspension, the liquid, in this case, water. Okay. What the difference is that means is that when you paint with watercolor, it goes onto the page and then the water evaporates and the pigment stays on top. When you're dealing with a dye, it's already diluted in the water because it's a dye. So it's when it goes onto the page, the water goes into the page, and so does the dye, and it goes actually into the page. What that means as an effect is you're going to get a lot more intensity in color, and that's what I'm going to show you now. So this is sort of like my best way to introduce, I find, Colorex because, and this is just any old watercolor paper. Just any old watercolor paper that I use. I'm going to move this because I'm going to damage it. Okay, so first things first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet my page, and it's just going to give you an idea of what I'm talking about when I talk about intensity. And it's the best way to show it because even on camera, it comes out. Okay, so what I'm going to do, if you've never done watercolor before, there's something called the wet on dry or wet on wet. What that really means is have you wet your page or not? So wet on dry means I've taken a wet media, so like watercolor, and I've put it onto a dry piece of paper and I painted, which is what I was doing before. This here is what's called wet on wet. So I've taken a brush and I'm really going to saturate that piece of paper, okay? And that's the trick to this. You want to make sure there's lots of, this is really wet on wet. And then I'm going to take the wet media, which is the watercolor, and then I'm going to put it on this wet page. Now, what I'm going to show you, my page is bending. What I'm going to show you, so this is going to be one drop, okay? So that's one single drop. Like that's how intense this is. That is one single drop that just explodes. And it's still going. Still going. It's still expanding, okay? That's the intensity that I'm talking about. So what you can do if you want to use sort of softer colors, like I do a lot of painting with softer colors, what I actually do is I use a lot of water and I add only a tiny little bit of ink. Like these bottles last me forever because there's just so much pigment to them. And in fact, actually, oftentimes I'll end up painting with my paint water because actually your paint water will actually start to take on color and will start to look really, really gorgeous. And you'll get these beautiful tones. I have definitely done that in a demo, started painting with my paint water. Right? I know, so pretty. So this is one of the things that I do. Actually, I'll finish up this one here. So let's add a couple more colors. And this is honestly just like a fun way to learn. There's 4 more drops. And I'm going to show you guys, I actually have a sketchbook of these. And this is actually one of the ways that I practice how the colors interact, how they work together, and sometimes how I come up with like different color combos. Never underestimate the power of play in art. We take art too seriously. Make sure to make the time to play. and explore. And you have no idea what might come out of it. So then what I would do is then I just kind of move it around and push the colors around and see what comes out of it. And the way that they blend together. Now I did this if you ever end up in a live Colorex demo, this is you will be doing these. This is one of the things that I do. And everyone kind of looks at me at first and then they fall in love with it and then they'll do like four of them. Um, because they are actually, first of all, super satisfying. But the result when dry, and this one we'll see when it's completely dry, is exquisite. So this one is totally wet. It is sopping wet, okay? Like this is all wet areas. So what we're going to do is we're going to let this one dry a little bit. And while it's drying, I'm going to show you guys some. Yeah, exactly. And it is reminiscent of alcohol inks. Got one in here in chat. Reminds me of alcohol inks, and it is actually super reminiscent of that. But the benefit with this is that they're water-based. So, for example, if you struggle with the chemically kind of side of it of alcohol inks, like for example, I know like my mother can't have has to keep things like pretty non-toxic. She can't use alcohol inks. Same thing, alcohol markers. She can't do it. So these being water-based, you can totally use them. Okay, so this is one that's finished, that's dried. Oops, hit my camera. So that's one that's dried. And you can see I've used the gold on it as well. So I've literally got like a sketchbook of these. There's another one. And again, you can see how it's just like you learn just through watching how they interact, right? And this is all just different combinations of Colorex and then one of the metallics. So yeah. So we'll let that one dry. Okay, so that's basically talking about the intensity of the colors, okay? Now what we'll talk about a little bit is going to be your markers. So I'm going to show you guys how to use these markers. So these markers are actually refillable. That is the first number one thing that's really exciting about them. Not only are they refillable, but actually you can also change the nib, so well, the tip. Now, in the sense of the tip, we only have one shape of tip. It's not like you can change different shapes, but more rather that if your tip, dies a horrible death, it's okay. You can actually just pull it out and switch it. We have a tool for that. I've never worked with these before. I foresee a trip to Delta in the near future. I know, right? I'm telling you, these are actually so fun. And I got once I started getting into them, I was like, oh dear, I'm in trouble. Wait till we fill up the marker. So, how you fill up the marker, and this is where it gets like really fun. Okay, filling up the marker. A lot of time, if you've ever filled up markers before, paint markers before, what you usually do is you have to take like the top off and then you remove the top and then you get like, you have to like put the ink on the top bit and then you get ink on your fingers and then you have to close it up again. This is not how that works. We're actually going to refill it from the bottom, which is the interesting bit. Okay. At the bottom, there is a little rubber sort of tip and you don't remove anything. You don't doing anything. Basically, all you're going to do is you're going to take what either you can actually use one of the eyedroppers from these bottles, but because we're going to do a custom color, I'm going to use a little dropper and a pipette, I call them. But yeah, we make these, we sell these, but you can get all sorts of different companies will make these. Okay, so we're going to need one of these. What we're going to do is I mix my colors inside a little pot, or in this case, in my little Sakura water dish. So what should we do? What do I have? We just used a green. So let's say, for example, I am using this green. Let's get some water going here. Say, for example, I'm using this green. Okay, so that's the green I'm using. Now, I love the green. It's very, very pretty. And imagine maybe I want to go do some like urban sketching in a forest, and that's a beautiful green, but it's a little bit on the intense side, unless if we're like big summer colors. Maybe I'm looking for something that's a little bit more soft. So in which case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this aside. I'm going to add a couple drops. Remember, this is very powerful. Usually 2, 3 drops will probably be enough. Yes, these bottles will last you eternity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a couple drops, and then I can use a brush to add my water, or handy dandy little pipette tool. And I'm going to add my water. And you see I'm adding a lot of water. I just used one full pipette's worth. Now I'm going to add a second pipette's worth. Now, if this were regular watercolor, this would be completely diluted. There would be not much in this. But you're going to be very surprised. I'm reminding you, this is 2 drops of ink. 2 drops of ink. 2 drops of ink and 2 entirely full pipettes. And we're still getting color. Now, if this had been watercolor, it would be completely disappeared. But you see how now I'm feeling this is a much more sort of natural kind of color, and especially for my urban sketching. I love this. This here I could absolutely use when I'm kind of going and just getting my rough sort of strokes in before I go in and add more color. This is perfect for me. I love this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my empty marker. So it's actually, see, it says empty marker there, but you can actually tell it's completely blank. It's white, there's nothing in it. It'll actually say 0. And then again, not through, you can actually see the end right here is completely white, totally clean. I'll put it right up to the camera because that is where, there we go. You can see a little bit better there. We're going to pull a makeup thing where, yeah, no, 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 there you go. We're going to put it in through the end. Again, I'm just going to take that pipette. And what you're going to do is you're going to actually push it in. Again, I'm not removing anything. This is just how the marker arrives. It's arrived out of the box. And then I take the pipette and I'm just going to push, and that will actually open it up. This is regular 140-pound watercolor paper, regular watercolor paper. I honestly just use any watercolor paper. I actually tend to just grab whatever is the first things next to me, because you can honestly, these things work on anything. Um, okay, so basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna push it and you'll actually kind of feel it kind of like open up a little bit and it goes in. And then what you're gonna do when you have your ink, you're gonna slowly press on this. Now some people go like press really hard, like give it time to absorb. There's an actual little cotton cartridge here that's actually gonna soak it all up. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna fill up my pipette and now I'm just gonna push it and I can feel it click. I can actually feel it push in. And then I'm slowly pushing this in. And you can see I'm going really, really slowly to give it time to absorb. And already, I don't know if you see on camera, you can actually see the green is coming. The green right there, this was completely white. And now the green is actually going down. So you can actually see your marker filling up. Okay, so I'm going to fill up another pipette. Now the question that I get a lot is how much do I need to put in? My question, I like my answer rather, is kind of honestly, it depends on the marker. If your marker already has ink in it, it's not going to need to take much. And if your marker is brand new, it will take a little bit more. If you overfill it, do not worry. I'll cover how to do that as well. And see, I'm just gonna finish. It is actually easier if you do it up and down. I'm just doing it sideways so you can see it. Okay, there you go. It goes in a lot easier. Okay. So now you can see my marker is actually totally green. It's almost like a Kermit green. Now, at the end right here, at the end, you can see my end is still white, but the green's only here. What it's going to do is it's still traveling down the cartridge. So at this point, you could actually kind of leave it the way it is. And it will actually go to the cartridge. You can actually see it's still filling right now. And that's usually, I try to wait to answer the question of like, what happens if you refill it? I try to actually wait to see it go all the way to the end because it'll probably be already full and ready to go just with what I've done already. If you overfill it, what ends up happening is you'll just see a little bit of liquid that's at the bottom, and that's no problem. All you do is you just take a paper towel and then you'll just rub the nib on the paper towel. It will absorb the excess, and you just keep doing that every now and then until there's no more liquid at the bottom. So as you see, like I overfill them all the time. Oftentimes I just do it for the camera even to show everyone it's really not that big of a deal. And then you can actually see the nib you see is turning green. So that's usually my trick as I wait. I'm going to ask you some questions while this does its thing. Can you reuse the empty markers if you rinse out the color? And can you buy new tips or should you buy another empty marker? Good question. Okay, so the because it is actually like a cotton cartridge, you can't really rinse them out. So it's not like an empty marker that you're putting liquid in. Your sort of the actual like cartridge will still hold the color. So basically, once you decide that that marker is kind of going to be that color, it's going to be that color. You can change the tip. That's no problem. That's easy. The tip on the other side is literally, it's like a tool. You literally just pinch the tip, pull it out, and then we sell the like new tips and you just pop it right back in. So the tips, that's a really easy change. It's just changing the color in them that no, you at that point have pretty much kind of decided that's going to be the color. I mean, you could get really MacGyvery about this. I mean, I always say this, but I mean, like, I'm always like, if you know my socials, you know I call myself the mad scientist of Pibio. I'm usually torturing our materials and figuring out which ways that we can do things that are not supposed to be done. Um, I'm quite convinced you could potentially pull out the little rubber and then try rinsing, but is it designed for that? No, it's not. You could, I mean, you could maybe MacGyver something though. I'm always up for invention. One of the things I did learn that you can MacGyver, I don't think it's designed for this, but it's really fun, is you can take a palette knife and you can actually, you know where it says zero right there and then on the top? If you get one of our markers, it'll actually usually have like the color and the number, but you've made this custom marker. And then if you have all your markers like that, then it's just like a zero. And if you're like me, you'll have like 40 zeros. So instead, what I do is I've actually, you can pop this little plastic out and you can put your own little circle of color and you can pop this little plastic back in and you can have your own custom colors. So you can actually do that. Can I use them with my regular watercolor pigments, like to do a sky or a background? These are designed now, okay, so that's where the pigments can possibly clog these because they are, remember, these are really more for dye and ink. Remember what when I was saying, like when it comes to like the pigment versus dye, pigment is in suspension. It's not diluted. Whereas dye, which is what these are made, that's why they're called watercolor inks. If a dye, it is diluted into the liquid. And so that's actually, for example, why, and we'll cover the metallics, because we will be talking about the metallics. Um, you see the metallics, they don't have a dropper. The colored ones that has a dropper and that little dropper on top, but the metallic ones, they don't have the dropper. That's because they are super heavily pigmented. You'll actually see they're like why they are not a dye. They are absolutely have pigment in them. And they will clog the marker. This being said, something that I did test out this Inktober, I did run in my mad scientist sessions. I did run our ink. I actually ran some India ink and China ink through these markers, and there was no issue. It totally worked. So they will, interestingly enough, they will take ink, which is quite interesting. So like I use like our yeah, or just our like China ink, and it totally worked. I used it for a marker, so it absolutely did. Okay, so now let's look at this now. And you see how totally green that is? See how totally green that is now. Okay, so now I've got my marker and it works. Now I kind of feel like it's still a bit dry. So I'm going to add a little bit more color. And that's kind of like just a feel thing. Kind of want to get moving. Point is, I would add some more color if I really wanted to, but I kind of would love to get moving. But yeah, so just all that happens there is that like I kind of feel it's still a little bit dry. So all I would do is I would just again go back to pipette, water, and I was using the moss green, 2 drops. It's almost like cooking. You're cooking your own markers. Okay, and again, super easy. Pop it in. Now I'm going to do it from on top. You've seen me do it sideways enough times. It will definitely go in a lot better if you're doing it from on top. Not sideways like I was doing, but that was for demo. Okay, and now I've put in a lot. I did not need to put that much in, but since I'm going for it, I decided we'll do it. And then that way, if we see it overload, woohoo! Okay, we have an overload, so I can show you how to unload it if you overload it. Okay, you can actually see a little bit here, possibly. There's a little bit of liquid, and you can't miss it. If you're alive right now, you would see there's like you can't miss it. There's like there's like bubbles of like water here. There's bubbles of paint. Okay, so I put way too much in here. So now But you can see it's coming up on my page beautifully. Look at that. Oh, I love that. It's just like a soft, soft green. And again, that's the ironic part. These are sort of known for their intensity, but I love them to use them for soft, soft, soft layers and just build your layers on top. So you can see how soft and gentle that green is. Um, just doing that has unloaded the extra water that was there. So that's all it is. If you overfill your marker, super easy. Either just do it on a paper towel or on a page and just let the excess come out and you're good to go. Okay. So that's your markers. That's filling, refilling your markers. Drawing done before we get painting into our, because basically our project is going to sort of cover all of this and use all of this. So I want to get through all of the basics before we get cracking on that. So again, I'm going to just take another sheet of watercolor paper. There you go. So our drawing gum comes in the bottle format and also a marker format as well. It's going to be a fine tip marker. Today we're going to be using the drawing gum from the bottle. You don't want to shake it, even though every single time I pick it up, I forget and I often shake it. If you do shake it, it's really not the end of the world. You just might have some air bubbles. But yeah, so you don't want to shake it though as much as possible. You can actually see it's blue like that. So what you do, and this stuff is so good. So we actually have one of the top, I think the top, um, drawing gums. Everybody loves it. And it works super, super well. So if you've never used drawing gum before, its job is to block out the areas that you want to keep white before you go into your painting. Okay, so if you want to keep your painting, like maybe you have an area that you want to keep this little flash of white in that area, or keep an area that's super clean. Or like, for example, in my case, how we're going to use it today is for the highlights of the Christmas lights. Because I wanted those little flashes, those little highlights. That was done with the drawing gum. So I put down the drawing gum, do the rest of my painting, and when it's dry, then you peel off the drawing gum. So I've prepared extra sheets for you. So we're going to use like a little cooking class here. Now, with a drawing gum, you can absolutely use a brush. You totally can. That's a thing. But I'm lazy and I don't like to wash it out of brushes. It takes me forever. So instead, what I use is I actually use it. This is actually a sculpting tool. These are little rubber tools. You can also just use, honestly, the other end of the brush. I'll often just use that. So not the brush end, but the stick end. And you can go ahead and just start adding, laying it down. So I'm just gonna, I don't know, do a little abstract wheat painting here. Okay, and if you have access to these little rubber tools, then you can kind of like do a bit more detail if you want. But that's the whole thing. We also sell it in the marker format, and the marker does crazy detail. It's like 0.7, so it's super detailed. Okay, so you just lay it down. And then what you're gonna do, you're gonna see it's essentially like this little rubber, and it's gonna stay, you're gonna let it dry completely, and it'll kind of just become tacky. What you do with your tools that you used it on, you can do two things. You can either take a paper towel right now and wipe it off, or you can honestly just let it dry and it's on a surface that you can easily peel it off. If you're using a brush, you want to wash your brush immediately, otherwise it's just gonna clog up your brush. But if you do like me and you do it on objects like this, you can actually just let it dry and peel it right off. Oh, so does it come colored already or does it dry white? So it no, it comes colored, like it's blue, and that's sort of its thing so that you actually know where it is. Because you're gonna see it's actually gonna what it does is it's gonna seal the page. So once it's dry, it looks like this. So once it's dry, it's gonna be this a little darker blue so that you can actually see it where it's gonna go down. And then from here, you can actually feel like I can actually touch it, but it's like tacky, like sticky, like rubber. And now what I can do is now I can go ahead and I can just paint. And this will completely seal my page. So wherever that drawing gum is, it is protecting those areas. And now what color do I choose? I'm gonna do blue again. We're on the theme. Okay, so now I'm just gonna drop in some blues. It's just gorgeous just like that. I almost don't want to touch it. Like it's just gorgeous. So we're gonna drop in some blues and then I'm gonna bring it around because we're gonna imagine this is a watercolor painting and not me with abstract blues. And then what you would do is you'd let it dry completely. So this is what it's going to look like right now. And you see it's just like one color and it's just gorgeous. So you're gonna let it dry completely, including the paper. And this is where people kind of get a little caught up, is they go, oh, well, the watercolor painting's dry. But yeah, but like make sure that you feel your page on the back as well. Make sure your page is completely dry. Once it's dry, then all you do, this is one that I've already prepared for you. Guys, like I'm so ready for you. All you do at that point is that then you actually can just peel it right off. And that's what it looks like. I'm gonna do it. You can peel it right off and it comes right off and it completely protects that area. Now you can use tweezers, you can use all sorts of different tools. Half the time I just use my fingers because it's fast and it's in a demo. But yeah, and there you go. You can see how it's completely blocked it. So you can actually see the areas because it's blue. I can see where it still is, and I can also see where it is not, right? And how that has completely blocked out the area. It seals it. It works. Can you just leave it on there, i.e., do you have to peel it off? That's a cool effect. Lynn, I love that question so much. Like, I actually genuinely adore that. Um, Good question. So you don't have to peel it up. You'll see it kind of like feels like tacky and sticky sort of thing. So most people will probably end up wanting to take it off. But no, you can actually leave it there. Now we make one that this one here has latex in it. So if you have a latex allergy, that's okay. We also make one that does not have latex. It is latex free. We do also make that as well. The difference in usage, though, is that if you're using the one that has latex in it, which is our sort of original recipe, is the one that I use. You can leave it on here for like months, and like come back to it and still be able to peel it off. Okay. But the one that has no latex in it, the one that's latex free, that one you want to like within 24 hours. Like I would make sure to take it off. That yeah, absolutely. Like to do your thing, do your painting, and then remove it off. Yeah. That was my next question about the latex. Of course, I'm allergic to it. Well, then, good news. We make one that is without latex and it works just as well. Absolutely. The only thing, like I said, is that you don't want to let it sit for like months. Yeah. So you basically, when you're doing your painting, if you are intending to remove it, make sure to remove it. We absolutely make one. And the latex-free version, we have it both again in the bottle and marker format. So both. You're good to go. And they work just as well. It works exactly the same. The only thing is the age part of it, of how long it can stay on the page. But that's it. Totally works. Yeah, no, exactly. And that's why it's so important to have one that's latex free. Absolutely. And that's why I bring it up because it's a very common allergy and it totally it works just as good. Okay, so that's covering the drawing gum. So at this point, you know how to use your paints from a bottle format, you know how to use them from a marker format, you know how to fill your markers, you have the tools you acquire. So now on to the next step is we're going to sort of get started on a project. Again, this is our project for today. We're going to get it started and we're going to get as far as we possibly can and sort of try to cover as many of the techniques that I possibly can with you, which is sort of like the idea. We won't be able to complete it in one entire session, unless if we want to stay here for the next 4 hours. But you will all be receiving a PDF download that has a step-by-step of all of the layers and all of them complete. So you'll know where everything goes if you do decide to practice this on your own. So step number one, in your PDF download, like I said, you're going to end up with a digital copy of the image. So this is a digital copy of the line work that I just printed from my home printer. Okay, I cut it out and then I attached it to a watercolor page. I made with a little bit of tape. I made some little hinges so I can, little flappy. And then what I like to use, which I think is really easy, is I just use some graphite paper or some transfer paper. If you've never used transfer paper or graphic paper, it has like on one side ink or like graphite, whichever one you've purchased. And then you just lay it graphite down. And then using a pen or pencil, you actually just trace your line work on the image side. And you just trace your line work. And this is a great way if you're doing sort of a step-by-step or you're doing sort of a series of watercolors and you're just repeating the same image. Maybe you're doing it in different colors. Using this stuff totally works. And before anyone says, don't trace, I'm going to say, welcome to being an artist. Sometimes you have to trace. Um, Especially if you're practicing or learning something. Tracing is going to be brilliant. Plus, I designed these, so you're good. Enjoy, use them. I have designed them for you. Enjoy. Okay, so basically, this is what it's going to look like after you've spent like an hour doing it. I'm not going to make you watch me trace, I promise. So I've like pre-traced this, okay? I love you guys and I appreciate you, so I'm not going to make you do that. Yeah, thank you, Lynn. Yeah, good for you. I trace a lot as my hand isn't as steady as it used to be. That's exactly it. And honestly, this is one thing that a lot of we've been using it forever. It's well known. Vermeer was using a camera obscura. You can Google it. Um, like do it. Enjoy. Have a great time. Okay, so once you've sort of transferred your design, whichever way you want to, if you want to freehand it, go for it. That's going to take you a real long time. Once you have transferred your image, then we're just going to remove, usually slowly so that doesn't damage the paper. But again, demo world, we're going fast. We're going to remove our image and we have this ready to go. We're going to pretend that I filled those two areas, but I don't want to do that. So you got your image ready to go. And now we're going to start putting down our first colors. So like I said to you, you can use either a brush or you can use the marker. There is also a third option as I'm selecting my paintbrush here. There's also a third option, which we will cover as well, which is that you can actually use pen and nib, and that will work as well. So using these as in a watercolor context, super, super easy. We're going to start with number 9, the Turkish red. And again, I'm just going to put like 5 drops. You could dip straight from the bottle, but if you knock one of these bottles over, it's going to be a long cleanup. Yeah, pen and nib, I use it all the time. Man, not like I use pen and you're gonna see I use pen and nib all the time, and it just works deliciously with it. So for this one here, I'm gonna go directly into the red. I'm not gonna add any water. Some of these I'll have to add some water because I don't want to be too intense. And you can actually see it's so easy. It's actually super therapeutic. And you can just follow the line work and fill out the areas. And what we'll try to do is we'll do like a corner of the design. And that way I'll get a sense of how everything goes about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one section here. And feel free, by the way, guys, at this point, if you haven't been to one of these sessions before, this is sort of like the part of the activity where I'm going to paint and chat. So if you have any questions or any comments or thoughts, you can go ahead, you can unmute yourself, you can just put it in the chat. This is sort of like the point where you have any questions. If you want to brainstorm even ideas or like what does this work on? Again, it's water-based. Um, so it's going to work definitely better on things that are absorbent, like paper. It will work on fabric, but it's not designed for that. We have a paint that's specifically designed for that. Um, Now, the thing that is well known for as well, being that it's a dye. If you're using it in a fine arts context, which is like what I use it for a lot, um, one of the things as well is that because people say like, oh, well, it's dye based, it's not as light fast. It's okay, breathe. All you need is a UV spray that we have a UV spray that's actually it actually protects against it fading. So you just kind of I do it all the time. I just spray my artwork with that and it protects it. Because so Colorex was designed in 1960s for layout artists and animators and illustrators. That's what it was originally designed for. So they needed those punchy, punchy colors, and then a lot of time it would just stay inside their notebooks and sketchbooks. So, but yeah, we developed a UV spray, and it's like super, it works great. Um, a lovely seeing you, Kelsey. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so I've done a section here. This is kind of my candy cane section. I've done the outline in the Turkish red. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my pen and ink. You can get a little close up there of what that looks like. So you can see I've done my little exterior of it. And now what I'm going to do with pen and ink, I'm going to dip directly into the bottle for that one. Let that sit there. And you see with pen and ink, it's super easy. Just dip. Dip some more. And then you can draw. I'm using a really, really, really fine nib for no particular reason. I suppose a little bit because I want to do some fine line work, but I could just have two nibs. But for some bizarre reason, I just love having a super fine nib. But that's just me. So you don't have to, please don't look at this video and be like, oh gosh, do we have to use a fine nib? No, use whatever nib you want. In the same way that I'm using this, whatever one I want. Now, once I've done sort of some first sort of lines for my candy canes, then because I am using a fine nib, I can add some smaller details as well. You can see the smaller details sort of developing. So that, again, I'll sort of like do an entire sort of corner of this artwork. And then you'll have a better idea when when you try to make it at home with the step by step. You have everything you need. But I mean, again, so right now I'm using it on the watercolor paper, like I was saying. But it doesn't have to be used for watercolor paper. You could use it on rice paper, honestly, just regular printer paper. You can use it on any set of paper. So please don't, if I'm showing up with this like fancy, 140-pound watercolor paper, please don't think that that's what you're stuck with. You can use any paper. And that's actually brings me up to the next thing as well, especially with the markers. You can totally use those. Like if you do a lot of coloring, um, part of the coloring industry, Google YO books and whatnot. Yes, totally. It will work. It will absolutely work. If the paper's too thin, which is sort of classic of online coloring books that we purchase, all you have to do is just put a little plastic in behind, but that's pretty normal with markers. Or another piece of paper, just something to protect the next page. That's if you're part of doing coloring industry sort of stuff. And so yeah, so I'm just adding in my details. And you can already see the difference between where I've kind of been adding my details in and then where I'm got nothing over here. It's just kind of like starts building up that texture, which is how we keep adding it on here. And it just kind of builds eternally. Can you use it on a clay-based shiny paper as I do with alcohol inks? This is such a good question, and perchance I actually know the answer because I actually had another artist that was telling me about it. They said that yes, I have not yet tested it. I bought myself the pad, but just I don't know. I got distracted. I'll be completely honest. I have no answer for that. I just tried it. But yes, absolutely. You can use it. However, they found that it did react a little bit differently. But it totally still worked. It absolutely still worked. But she said it actually created like different sort of color texture. So it did actually change it slightly. Hello, Valerie. Would it not bleed through printer paper to the other side, not from the products? Yes, absolutely, Lynn, it would. And that's what I was saying. So a lot of time, if you're into a lot of people who are really getting into the online coloring industry, there's coloring books that you can buy online and they're super cheap. But they're great. They're made by, independent artists a lot of the time, and it's great to support them. But a lot of the time, it's made on really cheap paper. It's sort of part of Amazon self-publishing, and so it ends up being really, really cheap paper that is really thin. And so what a lot of artists use is they'll actually take either a sheet of watercolor and put it behind the page entirely, or you can also use like an acetate, which is a kind of plastic, like a little plastic sheet. You can buy that at Delta, I'm sure. And then you just put it right behind and that will actually stop the ink from like bleeding through to the next page. It will like come out on the other side, but I mean like it doesn't really matter. But yeah, a lot of artists are actually doing that because if you've never seen this, I really go check out, coloring on Instagram or TikTok or I mean, there are artists that are spending upwards of, 12, 13 hours on one coloring page. I mean, they are, you can tell by what they've put into it. It's incredible. Yes, 100% their materials are going through the page, and that's what they're doing is that they're just putting just another sort of sheet of paper right behind it, and then that just absorbs the excess. So it does kind of make it more accessible. D Realistically, I mean, the watercolor paper, especially in a pad, is really not that expensive. So I tend to actually just use watercolor paper. I mean, I think I've gone through 5 sheets just in this workshop so far. But again, I'd like to keep it really accessible because it's important that art be accessible. It's important that you be able to use your materials with whatever you have. And same thing as well, especially the markers. I use them on regular paper all the time, all the time. Um, why not? I mean, if I'm sketching or whatever. Okay, so here I've sort of done like a little candy cane sort of pattern over here. We're good to go. So we're going to move on to the next set of pattern. What we'll do is, how about we're going to do sort of like a little wash kind of area over here, because that was the other thing too, is I want a little base of a wash. So we're going to use for the wash, we're going to do a mix for that. So we're going to use, again, I'm going to steal a little bit of the Turkish red, and then I'm going to take a little bit of number 3, the light yellow. A little painting trick if you are new to painting, try to keep your paintings within a similar palette. So for example, with here, I could go just get another red. But ideally, I'm going to try to, whenever I need to sort of add a little of a warm hue or a pinkish hue, or if I want to add something, warm up my colors, I'm actually going to try to use the same red that I used earlier on. And that will actually sort of unify your painting together because you're sort of using all the same pigments. Okay, so I've got a little bit of the light yellow here and a little bit of the Turkish red. All of this will be in your PDF. And I'm going to add some water because again, I want to do what's called a wash. So a wash is where we have a lot of water and only a little bit of pigment, and it covers usually a large area that we're later on going to paint on top when it's dry, which is why I want to do it now because I'd like it to be dry so I can paint on top of it before you guys leave. So I'm going to dip a little bit of my yellow. You can see that it's already turning yellow. Okay, that's how strong these are. So when I say strong, I really mean really, really strong. Use just a little bit. I guess the advantage of the ink is that it doesn't dry out very fast. It's so dry in Edmonton that I have to add extender to my acrylics. Yes. Dry more like a watercolor. Oh, that does actually, thank you, Lindy. It started inspiring me as well with a question. One of the questions I also get is, can you reactivate it? So like, for example, I have it like drying over here in my palette, or it's actually can dry on the page. You absolutely can reactivate these, just like watercolor. So essentially these function and generally just like watercolor, like just like watercolor. But the difference is that they're dye-based as opposed to pigment-based. So the same way that watercolor is transparent, as opposed to gouache, which is not. We should cover that. So watercolor and gouache, this thing that makes them similar, they are water-based paint, but gouache is opaque, whereas watercolor is able to be transparent. This stuff here being dye-based is totally transparent. It is just like gemstone transparent. Are these as blendable as watercolor? Yes, absolutely. No, but a great question, and thank you for asking it. Because I absolutely, yes, they are absolutely blendable as watercolor. And you could. That's what I use them for. Like sometimes I'll honestly do like a full painting just using like 4 colors and just keep blending and blending and blending the layers. That's my favorite part because there's so much you can do. And actually, going back to like the exercise number 1 when we did a little geode, which is actually still drying, but you can see as it's drying. Um, it also gives you an idea of what you can possibly mix, like what tones can be mixed out of that, which is actually why I do the exercise a lot of the time myself, like that sketchbook of like little geodes, I call them, but that sketchbook of those mixes that I showed you guys earlier, that one there, that's mine. It's for me. And it's because absolutely you sometimes there's accidental mixes that come out of it. And you know where I got the idea for that is I was in a live workshop and somebody he had never painted before, and he was doing this exercise. And I think he stayed for at least 15 minutes at his little piece of paper, single piece of paper, same piece of paper the whole time, and just moving the colors around, and he'd add another color, and he'd move it around. He created the most beautiful piece. It was gorgeous. And honestly, he just used a couple colors, but because of the way that they're moving and mixing, it was just beautiful. So they are super, super blendable. And honestly, that's a great exercise for learning accidental mixes that can come out of it. Okay, I'm gonna take a different brush here. At this point, I've made sort of a little bit of a wash. I'm gonna wet my brush just because I don't want to be completely dry. Can you use them alongside regular watercolor? Or are the pigments too strong? You can totally use them. There's no rules. Absolutely. They will be strong. They will absolutely be strong. But you can still use them. And I mean, like, look at here. Like, okay, like here, I'm going to use one as a wash, and you can see it's not too strong. In fact, I think the camera is barely picking it up. So you absolutely like, again, straight out of the bottle, they are very, very intense. They are designed to be so. But in the way that I use them with a lot of blending, a lot of adding water, mixing colors together, and suddenly they become a lot more sensitive is sort of the best way that I would say it. As I find they become a lot more sensitive. They gain a sensitivity that you would get, for example, with watercolor. I totally pair them with watercolor anytime. Easy, no problem. You'll just see actually the difference, the biggest difference you'll get, because especially if you're using them, if you're using them straight out of the bottle, yes, the intensity, the first difference you'll get is, whoa, these are intense. But if you are watering them down like I'm doing and, mixing tones together and creating these beautiful sort of watercolor colors with them. What will actually more strike you if you're using them together with watercolor is how transparent these are. Oftentimes when I'm been working with Colorex a lot, or I've been, teaching a lot of Colorex workshops, one after the other, I kind of get like Colorex brain and I kind of get used to like making artwork with Colorex. And then, because we also make watercolors. So then if I have to do a project that's like Pebeo watercolors, then I'm like, oh, wow, these are, oh, so different. But really what's happening is that I'm just so used to how crystal clear these ones are. They are super transparent, whereas watercolor is actually a little bit, believe it or not, less transparent. So yeah, so that's just a wash. So you see how soft they can also be. They don't have to be super intense. So what I've done there is I've just done a little wash. Washes in watercolor are usually used to use as a base because then you're going to start building your painting on top, and you can do multiple washes. You can let this dry and add another wash on top. Again, it will reactivate itself, but that's actually quite beautiful because sometimes you can end up with a wash that sort of reactivates a base wash and it just creates completely different mixes. In this case, we're going to let this one dry a little bit because I'd love to come back to it once it's dry. So we're going to move on to over here. Yes. Or should we do the center one? Yeah, we're going to do the center one. We're going to do the center one over here of the Christmas lights. So for the Christmas lights, I'm going to sort of reminding us again that where we're going over here. I'm going to do this little, again, this little yellow sort of background to them. I'm going to do that first because I want that to be dry before I start actually adding in my lights. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put in the yellow that I'm going to use around the edge, and then I'm also going to do my drawing gum so that can dry in time for me to come back to it, hopefully before the session ends. Okay, so for around the lights, I'm going to use number 40 saffron. And the saffron, I am going to add a bit of water because on its own, you guys always have a testing page. It'll be your sacrificial testing page, but sometimes it ends up being really beautiful and it becomes a painting in itself. So you know what? Just run with it. So straight out of the bottle, it's almost like this. It's just a rich, gorgeous orange. I was using this fall to paint pumpkins. It's gorgeous, but it's a bit intense for what I'm looking for. So I'm going to add a little bit of water again. Now I added about 4 drops of saffron because I was ambitious. I really didn't need 4 drops. This is going to be probably quite intense. And I fully encourage you guys, paint haphazardly, have fun. Don't get too stuck up in things. Okay, so we've added a little bit of water, and you can see it's shifting a bit, but I'd like it to shift one more level down. For myself, you might decide that this is perfect, and in which case, go for it. By the way, again, reminder, no rules. Okay, and now I'm gonna add, I've just added a bunch of water and it still hasn't shifted much. Just barely a shift. If anything, there's actually, I added more on my brush. So I just added a bunch of water and I'm still at the same level. So you're getting again that sense of it's not that you can't dilute them because as you can tell from the wash, you can soften them. It's just more that if you want softer colors, like I tend to try to corral them into, you're going to have to add a lot of water. So keep that in mind when you're mixing because it is a little bit counterintuitive, especially if you work a lot with watercolor. Yeah, it's a little bit softer. There's ever so slightly softer. We're gonna go for it. I could, if I wanted to, continue, but I kind of prefer to just continue painting. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start going around. I'm gonna go all the way around my little Christmas ornament circle thing because I want it to dry in time for me to actually do do the next steps, do the colors that are inside the lights. So I'm just going to do the full exterior. I'm also painting the area that I am going to gild. And at this time, I'm going to be gilding with the Colorex gold paint because it's gorgeous. Um, now, okay, so remember that these paints are really, really transparent, right? So oftentimes my suggestion is as much as possible, unless if you want the colors to blend, just do the color onto the white page because they're so transparent, it will come through. Now, it doesn't really matter too much. Like in this case, I want that sort of wash, and then I'm going to add a deep green on top, and then you're just going to get that richness and the layers of richness come out. In the case of the Christmas lights, I actually want the Christmas lights to be bright, 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 solid colors. So I'm actually making sure to stay far away from putting anything on there. But the areas that I'm going to gild, the areas I'm going to put the gold of Colorex is very powerful. It is quite unique. I'll remind you, it does not go inside of a marker. It is super heavily pigmented. It is its own beast. So it can actually go on top of colors and it's fine. Okay, it is very, very strong. The silver, I find the silver prefers, unless if you're going to use thick, thick amounts of it, the silver, it is capable, absolutely, of covering colors, no problem. I use it all the time in sort of my like sketchbook of geodes. Especially when I'm doing demos, I use the silver as well. So the metallics are super, super strong. If you're painting with the silver, unless if you're going really thick, it does tend to like a paler background. This being said, it really depends on the design. I've used it in areas that were like predominantly like dark night blue and black, and the silver just popped. But for example, when I was designing this, I did a test if the gold or the silver would look better, and the silver, the gold one went hands down. Okay, so I've done the exterior here. That's going to give it some time to dry. I'm also going to do the center. And you see the center is going to have some gold accents to it, but I'm just going to paint over that whole area because again, the gold, once this is dry, I'll be able to paint the gold right on top. There's no problem. I'm testing my page. It's still wet. Okay. Now, again, right, what we're doing right now is we are putting in sort of the foundations of our painting so that then we can add our colors and layers on top. So what we've got here, the candy cane area, it was really easy to do. It doesn't require anything else. You just paint in your colors and your line work, you're good to go. This center area here, it needs the undercoat, which we've done, and then we're going to be able to do sort of our green branches, and then we'll actually be able to do the gold bubbles. Last but not least, over here, we're going to have our Christmas lights design. Now we've already put in our basic sort of color of yellow around for the exterior and the center bit. But next is actually going to be, we're going to want to put some color into these actual lights. But we want to make sure that we preserve these highlights. And that is going to be the next challenge. And that's where the drawing gum comes in really, really, really handy. We could honestly just paint around and just kind of like leave some highlights. You can totally do that. But this gets a little bit more fun is that we just kind of add, and I'm just going to add little flicks, tiniest little flicks. And this is where, again, you can use the end of a paintbrush. If that's what you have. The rubber tool. This is honestly a sculpture tool. Um, I've used toothpicks. Toothpicks totally work if you don't have any of these things and you just want to pick up drawing toothpicks. Toothpicks work amazing. You literally just need a tool to remove it. And I remind you, you can totally actually just use a brush. It just I just don't like washing it out of brushes. I just find it really annoying. Um, so you can absolutely wash it with a brush, wash it with a little bit of soap, and it will come out of your brush. It's just I find it easier to just use a tool that I can actually just peel it off of. Okay, so I've added it in. You can actually see some little highlights there, those little drops of blue, and that's my drawing gum, which I'm going to let dry completely. So while these coats here are drying, it's perfect. I'm going to enter the conversation on the gold. Okay, so Colorex has three different metallics to it. It has two different golds and then one silver. The gold we're going to be using today is rich gold. I find it super, super bright and gorgeous. Now we're going to take our artwork that we were working on earlier, just a sort of abstract geode, with the Colorex. Remember that these here, the dye is diluted, right? So you don't need to shake them. It's all good. It's there. With the Colorex metallics, different story. There are pigments in it. So you actually have to shake it. And you like really want to shake it. Shake it as much as you can. Shake it lots and lots and lots and lots. And how you can tell if it's ready to go is when I open it up, it's smooth gold. You can see it's just a smooth, beautiful liquid metal. It is gorgeous. If you see kind of like black swirls a little bit, that just means it hasn't completely emulsified. No problem. You just close it and then you shake, 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 shake again. Okay. So what you want to be is completely emulsified. And once it's completely emulsified, it's going to look like this. It's going to look like just liquid metal. And it's just gorgeous stuff. And what it looks like for your on the brush, get another brush over here. So I wet my brush a little bit, but then I wipe off the excess water. And then I'm gonna do this closer up to the camera. And you can just see how metallic that is. It is just like liquid metal. Like you can actually see that's a wet water spot, and this is just the gold. It will dry looking just like this. It will not shift. So you see how this has shifted from wet to dry. It's got matte. This will stay shiny like liquid metal. It is beautiful. And what's wonderful about it as well is that it also will kind of like self-level itself. So if, for example, I'll do it on the same page. Um, I, I'm going to do a whole bunch of different brush strokes. I'm just doing a big chunk of gold here. And I've just done a big chunk of gold and you can't see the brush strokes. So it actually masks the brush strokes. So I've done a watercolor, for example, once of a character, and it was an anime character, and they had like a gold sort of circle behind them to make the anime character pop out front. And I just used this as the gold. Everyone thought I had gilded the background, but really I had actually just used the Colorex because actually the brush strokes don't show. Like it's incredible. Like you can actually there's zero brush strokes. Nothing. And you can see how well it's gone on top of the dark colors, right? That's the other thing as well. So it can actually handle a lot. So when we bring it back to our watercolor painting, which is sort of more or less-ish kind of dry, what that means is we can actually just, that is a really ambitiously large brush. What it means is we can just take it and just go right over any color It's a bit much. And I'm just gonna, you can paint right on, and there's no issue. And you get that beautiful shine, that beautiful liquid shine that you end up with the final. That's all just the gold I've been applying. Okay, you can really, really see how much it shines. Now, so at this point, I want to make sure that we'll have some time for chatting at the end. So I'm going to keep my eye on the clock. Just keep your eye on the clock and drop in the paintbrush. Okay, so that's the goal, which I can keep adding. I'm just waiting for these to dry a little bit more. They're almost there. While we're waiting for it to dry, I'm going to take some of the moss green. That's way too much moss green. Now, the moss green is one of those colors that straight from the bottle is very deep. Very, very, very deep. So I'm going to add, I could add a little, I have two options here. I could add a little bit of water straight to my palette, like I've been doing. But another option as well is you can actually add your water straight to the watercolor. So you can actually have a bit of water on your brush. And then just dip the color in. So what thing with watercolor, if you've never worked with watercolor, watercolor chases water. So I always repeat this to every student. What that means is that if there's water on your page, the watercolor will chase it. It will go to that area. The paint, the pigment will go there. If your page is dry, it will only stay where you've placed it. So this is definitely a great trick when you're doing sort of a large area and you want to get like flashes of color, especially with Colorex. You've seen how it travels across the page, right? When I did that first demo of the single drop. You can do a lot of that with this, where you kind of add a bit of water to the page and then you just sort of guide the pigment along and it will travel. Especially if there's water on that page, it will travel quite far just because of the intensity. Okay, so I'll keep going. So you see how I'm adding a little bit of water and then I'm adding just a touch of pigment until I'm happy with it. And I could keep going, but you get the gist. Okay, so one of my lights. Ooh, a few of my lights. Wonderful. A few of my lights are dry. So how I did the lights. Okay, so at this point forward, and you can see that's pretty fast. Like, okay, one of the lights, this one is not completely dry. But the other ones, the drawing gum is already dry. Yes, it is. That one is the only one that has a little spot. Oh, and if you put drawing gum in an area and then you put either too much drawing gum or you realize, oh, I regret putting drawing gum there, just let it dry and then you can peel it off. You really, like, don't try to wipe it while it's wet. Just let it dry completely and then you'll peel it off and it's no problem. I do that all the time. Yeah, the metallics are so gorgeous. I'm addicted. Okay, so what we're going to do with the lights, so to create that beautiful sort of mottled effect there, that just kind of makes the lights look like glass a little bit, especially in comparison to the rest of the piece where we went pretty bold sort of colors. And then over here, I've got this kind of moth sort of glass effect for the lights. How I did it is I actually added a ton of water, but just around the light, making sure not to touch the edge where the yellow is. Okay, so I've added just pure water right now. And like there's like a water bubble. And then I take the color that I want, and then I just dip it in. And then I just move it around. Now, I would lift this up to put it closer to the camera, but it would like drain everywhere. That's how much water I have on here. And then you just let that dry. it's going to dry down beautifully. It gets absorbed into the page, and you end up with these beautiful effects. So I'm going to do it again with the blue. Still have a little bit of time. And do it again with the blue. This time I'm going to use, so the light blue. And again, see just like the littlest bit and it just explodes. So at this point, there's so much water on this light that you can't even see the drawing gum. It is like underwater right now. It is completely submerged and it doesn't matter. Just let it dry. Just let it dry completely, and then your page will be completely dry. The water will have disappeared, and instead, all you'll have left is a drawing gum. And then when it's done, remember that not only that your paint is dry, but that your paper is dry. Make sure that both are completely dry, and then you'll actually be able to peel off the drawing gum. That's where people actually, when I've done sort of demos and people have had trouble, they've gone like, "Oh, but the paint is dry," and but then I like feel their page, and I'm like, I can feel your paper is still cold. Like if your paper is still kind of feeling cold or damp, it's not going to work. You want your paper to become, well, it might still work, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to work as well. We want it to be completely sealed. So that's going to what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure that it's completely dry. And then at that point, you just peel it off like I did with this one over here. Super easy. You just peel it right off and it's no problem. It's actually quite satisfying. Um, Okay, I think that's that. We are on the last little 15 minutes. Before I sort of switch back to camera, on this painting here, do we have any questions at all? Again, you'll get a download that you'll be able to have a step by step of how I did it really like, and you'll have a picture of each step completed. But any questions before I switch to camera? Well, my own camera. Obviously, I'm on camera. No, good for now. If there's anything at all, type it up. Okay, I'm gonna switch up a little bit here. So that's basically Colorex at this point. Let's switch to camera. There she goes. Okay, so that's the Colorex line. You have this activity that you can do at any time. You'll be receiving it in your inbox later. Um, if there's any questions at all, again, you have my socials now. If there's any questions at all, of course, you can ask anyone at the Amazing Delta team. That's without a doubt. But if there is anything at first that you want to reach out to me, literally my job is to help you play with our products. That's literally why I exist. So if there's anything at all, please don't hesitate to reach out. Even brainstorm. I've had people be just like, I'm thinking of doing this. What do you think? And you can message me. You can tag me in an artwork. Anything. Yeah, I'm so excited to use Colorex ink. So much to explore. Thanks. I'm so glad, Mary. That's amazing. Once you see them, it's like, oh, there's so much you can do because they are actually so gorgeous. They're super highly pigmented. Again, the bottle or marker format, I'm addicted to them. I'm super excited to get to share this addiction with everyone. Thanks for demo. I've been itchy to try the watercolor. Yay! I'm so glad. You're gonna love them. You're gonna love them. And again, if you don't, if you get some and then you don't need a lot of colors, if you want, you can just grab a couple colors. You don't look, because that's the whole thing. Okay, you're gonna go there and there's gonna be a displayer and you can counter me if you want, but Kirsten, but like we have a zillion colors. There's like it's over 50 colors. So there's a ton of different colors. So if you get to this player and you're like, oh my gosh, there's like way too many colors. I don't know what to choose. I think the official thing that people often say is like you should get your split primaries. But I'll be completely honest, I think you should get the colors that you're attracted to. You're going to have a lot more fun. You're going to create a lot more art that gets you excited. So if you don't know which colors to choose, my suggestion is choose a couple, play around with them from there, and then you'll kind of get like an inkling of what do I need next, and that will help a lot. Yeah, you need the drawing come in your life. You love the idea. No, it's so good. No, like it's so good. And again, we have the latex version, so you'll have that. Um, did I have this? Hold on, I'm going through the questions. Can you use them on acrylic-based canvases? Yep, for sure. For sure. Absolutely, you can use them on acrylic-based canvases. Um, Now, again, I would like because this whole thing with acrylic-based canvases, they're still absorbent enough, right? Like it's not like a pure plastic or something like that. It will totally still work. I would not work on a plastic water bottle. Okay, like that's not going to happen. Now, the material that we will be talking about week, next week, we're going to be covering our acrylic markers, our four artist markers, and as well, I'll do a little mini bonus round on Vitrail. Both the four artist markers and the Vitrail work crazy good on plastic and metal. They work on other things too, obviously. But the yeah, that's and that gets really interesting. Like it almost feels like counterintuitive because yeah, it feels weird the first time you use them. Thanks so much. Thanks so much. Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you for stationing. To get to anything else. If I use these colors in my regular watercolor, will my work be called mixed media? Ça, c'est une bonne question, Agnes. So the question is, will it be considered mixed media? I mean, like, kinda, but not hugely. It's still watercolor, right? So you're still in the watercolor world for sure with these. So we at Pebeo, we have two watercolor lines. We have our like traditional watercolors, and then we also have that's the wrong one. We also have the Colorex. Um, we also have children. We have a lot of other stuff. But the point is, so yeah, so it would still be in the watercolors range. I think if you start incorporating the other things of the past weeks, well, the past week and the upcoming weeks, you will 100% be mixed media. And that is the fun part. We can absolutely integrate all of these together. They do work together.